Hey everyone, Brad Porter here with your weekly Sunday update. Hey, we've got robots running around in the background here, so hopefully that's not too distracting, but it's super cool. Um, a lot of like fascinating stuff in the physical AI world this week. Um, so Jitendra Malik, professor at UC Berkeley, kind of put a bit of a rant on Twitter where he was like, "Look, uh, until you can sit down at one table with a 5-year-old and another table with your robot arms and give them the same prompt and have them do the same thing. Like, we really don't have physical AI that generalizes in the world." And I think this is, I don't know, the Malik test versus the Turing test. It's a good test, right? Francois Cholet and I went back and forth a few years ago about kind of a dexterous mobility task of like cat-like behaviors. Can a cat kind of, my proposal was, could you put a laser pointer and have a cat follow it around a maze of ropes and steps and carpets, and could you have a robot do the same thing? And we kind of debated as to whether like by 2030 that would be possible. And I think, we're seeing reason to believe it might be, but I think we're like the over under on 2030 is pretty good on that. Just because cats are incredibly dexterous. But the point is, like, what are the evals in physical AI? What are the tests that are going to tell us that we've reached some level of generalization? Physical Intelligence put out their Pi 0.5 or Pi 0.7 paper and kind of showing, again, kind of hints of open world generality. But I think if we had completely solved open world generality, tabletop, whatever, those companies would be showing that. So we just don't quite have it yet. Also fascinating that the NVIDIA put out a 3D generation model, very much like World Labs Marble system. The reality is, like, everyone's playing all across the stack here. NVIDIA is building models, right? So to some extent competing with their biggest customers. They're investing in the whole space, kind of creating competition amongst. And so there's this kind of cycling of like competitors, investors, cooperators. There's a Bloomberg report that Sequoia raised $7 billion largely to invest in these kind of model-based companies and the expansions. And in some ways that sounds huge, right? $7 billion. But then when OpenAI is out raising more than $100 billion, it's just crazy numbers right now. And so I think a lot of stress about how the world plays out, right? Which of these techniques is going to get there? If you build a great model, can you protect it in some way? Or is there going to be an open source model? Or is NVIDIA going to come out a model which does the same thing? My thesis, which is, the subject of our the podcast. By the way, podcast is doing great. Alfred Lin was our second guest. Over 270,000 views of his podcast on YouTube. If you haven't checked out, Jeff Wilkie, Alfred Lin, both great. Bilal Zuberi, the longtime Lux investor, formerly General Catalyst, now has his own VC. Red Glasses is going to come out this Tuesday. Attention to that. The point is, like, actual deployment, right? Getting robots in the field working like we see behind us is what's hard, right? And that last like 20%, 5%, 2%, that was what we struggled with at Amazon, right? With AI, with robotic systems, how do you get the reliability? And look, I think Amazon, we did an amazing job. The teams continue to do an amazing job. But it's hard. It's hard to get these systems out there, right? And so it's a fascinating time. We will find out over the next, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years how this all plays out. We think, Cobot's thesis is those companies with the experience and the relationships and the infrastructure and the system to deploy, combined with the AI, are what's going to transform the world through robotics. So that's my Sunday update, and look forward to yeah. Please check out the podcast this week. Subscribe, follow our newsletter. Trying to get more and more out there about what it really takes to deploy these systems in the real world and kind of put the content out there. So hope you all have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.